Am I good?
Mhm.
All right. All right, guys. Welcome to the webinar here today for the scientific challenge. This is for our appraiser training. I am Jessica Jones.
Hi, and I'm Bree.
And there's Bree. We are two of the three affiliate challenge masters for Challenge B. So welcome to the Challenge B team. We are happy to have you, and we are going to get started. Oh, also, see, I already forgot something. I haven't even gone in. Bree is going to be monitoring the Q&A section and or the chat. So if you have any questions, because I think everyone is muted, I'm sure most of you will wish I was muted, but unfortunately I'm not. So you get any questions you have, just send them over, type them in the chat, and Bree will either stop it or she will just answer you back right in the chat. Okay, getting into it. I'm Jessica. As I said, Bree, we're two of the three. Dale is our third. This is just kind of a list so that you know who's going to be contacting you, because we are so happy to have you as one of our appraisers. So for each of the different regions, this is going to be basically the person who you will be getting, or one of the people on this list, because some of these regions have multiple. They will be reaching out to you about appraising for their region. And I'm gonna have to take my watch off. One second. Got people texting me. All right, so those are the regions. Here are the dates that the regions line up with. So we have our first tournament is on February 23rd down in Southwest. Probably most of our folks are not headed down to Durango. We have 3 tournaments on March 2nd. We have 3 tournaments on March 9th and 2 on March 16th. And then if you really love your experience, which we hope you do, you will let us know that you're available for the state tournament on April 6th, which is a fun day. So definitely, if you're enjoying your time, if you're new to this, let your regional challenge master know, and they will help get you in contact. They'll help make sure that we get in contact with you for the state tournament. Also, regional challenge master, if I say RCM, that's what I mean. If I say ACM, that stands for affiliate challenge master. I know that sometimes I get a little bit lazy with the acronyms, so please holler if I get ahead of myself here. All right. We are going to jump right into Challenge B. For our overview, this is medical mystery. The teams will be researching the human body and medical conditions that affect the human body. They'll have to create and present a story about their medical mystery that affects a human character. They are going to design and build a representation that shows the medical mystery and at least one symptom, and they will have to present an action or scene that is shown from 2 or more perspectives at the same time. Woo. The basics, these don't really change, probably don't even need them in here, but teams get $150 for their performance. It really is, for the most part, it's going to be it's going to be the responsibility of the prep person to make sure the team is following this, making sure that items really are garage sale value, if that's what they're claiming, that they're not brand new, or something that's crazy expensive that they're claiming is $3. 8 minutes for each of the performances. That includes their setup, and then sometimes they'll take the full 8 minutes, sometimes they take 2 minutes. You just never know. And then the presentation area, they get what we give them. Well, that's what we have to give them. So in the DI world, we have sometimes our own vocabulary. Can't really say that this first one is our own vocab, really. But for the purpose of this challenge, when we define human, that is defined as Homo sapiens. Our medical mystery is, you know, sometimes things aren't as obvious as they would appear. Our medical mystery is any disease, illness, injury, bodily change, or physical and or mental health condition for which one or more characters in the story have no explanation. The question that we have been getting the most, or well, but also our international challenge masters and the team clarifications, is does the medical mystery have to be real? It does not. Nowhere in that definition does it state that it has to be a real disease or illness or injury. So no, it does not. It doesn't say they can't, so they can. A symptom is something physical or mental that indicates the presence of said medical mystery. Diagnosis is the team's explanation of the medical mystery. The symptomatic is a physical representation of parts of the anatomy of the human character experiencing the medical mystery and the effect of at least one symptom on the human character's anatomy. So, we okay so far? I know there's been a lot. We will go into all these in way more detail than you probably will want to know. But just trying to be sure that you get these words in your head right off the bat. Double vision is one action or scene that is shown from two or more perspectives at the same time. This is has been a lot of fun to go around with the ICMs and team managers. The important part here is that the team can define perspective. Perspective can be how I saw something, like I interpreted something, or it could, physically be me looking in one angle, someone else looking at another angle. Perspective can be defined by the team. However, what cannot be defined by the team is at the same time. We really kind of have to take that from two or more perspectives out of this. And the idea is that it's one action or scene that is shown at the same time. At the same time means it needs to happen simultaneously. So that's been kind of fun. And again, we will get more detailed into our fun. But just so you know, that's kind of where we're standing on that. Perspective can be defined, at the same time cannot. Blocking and staging. Blocking, placement or movement of team members. Staging is the same thing, but that of props, objects, set pieces, whatever the team so chooses. Technical methods. These definitions are pretty standard. For the last couple years, they've kind of tweaked them a little bit, but technical methods, use of principles in all the nerdy fields. Technical design is the result of a plan for carrying out or accomplishing a task, and technical innovation is how new, unique, original, or creative the methods are for initiating, operating, and in this case, specifically and or producing the symptomatic. So really the big difference there is that technical design is really focused on the result. So if the action, accomplishing a task is not accomplished, then the technical design score will be more affected, which again, I think is later in these slides. But just want to let you know, when it comes, sometimes it's hard to remember, but the key is technical design, result. Cool. Alrighty, so in the story, going back, as we said, they're going to have a story about a medical mystery that affects a human character. The human character may be portrayed using any theatrical style, method, or manner. So the human character does not have to be portrayed by a human. It could be by a puppet, however they choose to do it, but it does have to be a human. The medical mystery can affect more than one character, more than one human character, but the team will have to define just one to be scored. The human character must experience at least one symptom caused by the medical mystery. And is it in this Okay. So one symptom. Include a diagnosis. The team's diagnosis must be supported by at least one symptom. How convenient is that? The team will need to integrate research about the human body and or medical conditions into the story. So one of the things that we said right off the bat is that the medical mystery does not have to be real, but the research does. That being said, the research does not necessarily have to be about the medical mystery. There is no requirement that says that that research is, you know, that and the medical mystery are going to be together. You could have a team member who, when they burp, they now meow, and that could be your medical mystery. Now, they could then do real research on why humans burp or sounds that people make, and that could be real, but there does not necessarily have to be, that research can be in many different places, does not have to be, but the research does have to be real. Cool. Story can be set in any location, real or imaginary, in any time period, past, present, or future. So that's why future, maybe it's some medical mystery that we have yet to encounter. Woohoo, futuristic. Doo-doo-doo. All right, for the points, they are going to get points for the dramatic portrayal of the human character affected by the medical mystery. They are going to get points for the integration of research about the human body and or medical conditions into the story. They get a 0 or 10 for if the diagnosis is presented and supported by at least one symptom. And then creativity of the story and clear and effective storytelling. In the DI world, clear and effective storytelling means that the story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. If a team goes over their 8 minutes, or sorry, they cannot go over their 8 minutes, they will be cut off at 8 minutes. If their skit or performance is cut off at 8 minutes, their story may not have an end. And hopefully the other elements and their double vision and things have already occurred. But those are a little bit more obvious, but just so you know, if there is no end of the story end of the story, clear and effective storytelling can be impacted. All right, story. Oh, I forget one note. Okay, in the story, in the challenge, Kate, I don't know if you're still there, you did send the challenge out. Well, even if she didn't, we'll make sure that you get that. But
Jessica, I did send. I'm sorry, my husband's doing dishes.
Sorry about that. Sorry to bug you.
No. Yeah, I sent the challenge out. You guys should have received it probably around 6:45.
Okay, perfect. So in the story, point 8, and this has been something that I brought up to the International Challenge Masters and received a lengthy response, but the team should use good judgment and sensitivity when creating the solution to ensure it's appropriate for all audiences. We have pretty much been given the green light that for the most part, we will not be restricting anything. If you feel so terribly offended by what you see, talk to your head appraiser, your RCM. But as long as essentially there's no profanity and there is no team member nudity, that the team member, not necessarily the human character, but the team member, as long as there's no nudity, then we pretty much have been given the green light to go. The challenge master, the International Challenge Masters told us that the challenge writers chose to embrace their inner middle schooler. So you can imagine what they're going with that. So just so you know, in case you read that note, again, if you find something horribly in awful taste, then definitely let your head appraiser know. They have been given some instructions by us, but just want to be sure in case you see that we note that here for you. Hopefully it won't be an issue, but you just never know, right? For the symptomatic, the team is going to design and create their symptomatic. They will have the technical methods to initiate, operate, and or produce, design, and build all parts of it on their own, using their own ideas and skills. They can have a commercially produced item, but only the changes that the team makes will be scored. So if for some reason the team, though this doesn't fit at all, but if they go out and buy a volcano kit and all they do is paint it, then that's not necessarily of the team's own ideas and skills. So anything that's commercially produced, then in that case, you'd really be scoring the painting if that was the situation. So again, not really necessarily symptomatic unless they have a volcanic gash in their arm. I don't know. Anyway, but bad example, but we're going with it for now. Moving on with the symptomatic, the team is going to earn points for technical design and innovation based on all the technical methods used, blah, 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 blah. If the task is not accomplished, as we noted, the team may still earn points for technical design and innovation, but the team's score for technical design may be affected. There's more on this. All right. Technical methods using less direct team member involvement may earn more points for technical design and technical innovation than methods that have more direct team member involvement. Makes sense. And then the features of the symptomatic should be observable from 25 feet away. We don't actually measure this out. This is really just to be sure that the teams know that it needs to be seen. The appraisers, the audience, everyone should not be guessing, is that it? Or like having to the appraisers shouldn't have to get right up close and personal with it just to see that is the symptomatic. It should be very obvious to everyone who is watching the presentation what the symptomatic is. So I'm sure some of the audience members won't actually know what a symptomatic is, but in theory they should see it. All right, for the points, they get points for the integration of the symptomatic into the story, technical design, and technical innovation. Now, when we defined the symptomatic earlier, we said that it is a physical representation of parts of the anatomy of the human character experiencing the medical mystery and the effect of at least one symptom on the human character's anatomy. Earlier, we also said that there had to be one symptom, right? Where is it? They get points for the diagnosis is presented and supported by at least one symptom. Those symptoms do not have to be the same single symptom. So the symptomatic could be displaying a symptom that is just one of 4, and the diagnosis maybe is not actually on what the symptomatic is showing, but could be determined via some other symptom. So just so you know that it's easily integrated to have one be the one be all for all of these points, but that does not necessarily have to be. Are we good on questions? I know I'm just.
Yeah, we just got one question. It says, will we average the technical design of the display of the anatomy and the portrayal of the symptom, or will the cooler one dominate the score? I'm guessing that depends on what's on the tournament data form.
Yeah, so, and it also will depend on its success, right? So sometimes something will look super cool and you're like, whoa, they walk in the door and you're impressed already. But they then get there and it crashes and burns and it does not work at all. Well, then in that case, your cool factor can be scored in the innovation, but the design can then be impacted. Ideally, you're looking, at a perfect Venn diagram where that's awesome and it works. it's awesome looking, you know, it's designed great. And then I know that's a horrible word because design is actually result, but the innovation is great, and it works. And then in that case, you will, you know, they will get high scores in both. But it's not necessarily average. We do put them as two separate scoring items for a reason. And because of that, because we do want to be sure that we are, and I say this later, but you know, the goal of an appraiser is to give points. And so we really feel that breaking this up does allow us to have an opportunity to give them points for their cool factor, even if it doesn't work. Does that help? Make sense? Maybe.
Sounds good. Hopefully, I didn't get a response that it didn't, so.
All right, any other questions?
Yes, somebody else asked, could you repeat what you said about the symptom shown doesn't have to be related to the diagnosis?
Okay.
It just doesn't have to be, I mean, the symptom on the symptomatic doesn't even have anything to do with the diagnosis necessarily, correct?
Right. So basically, the challenge sets it up nicely for teams, because just looking straight at the points, they get points on a diagnosis is presented and supported by at least one symptom. And then with the symptomatic, so I'm sorry, flipping through my challenge here. The symptomatic has to show the effect of at least one symptom on the human character's anatomy. So basically, though, if I think we will see a lot of teams where the symptomatic is showing the effect of the symptom that is then used for the diagnosis, but that does not necessarily have to be the case. So if I have, gracious, it's so hard to think of things on the spot. If I have, we'll go back to the volcano because that's what I said with the symptomatic. So if I have a volcano on my arm, but I also have a giant hole in my leg, and the symptomatic is the volcano on my arm, they could technically make the diagnosis using the hole in my leg. Maybe I'm now Swiss cheese. I don't know. Then I guess I wouldn't be a human character, but whatever. But just saying that the one symptom of the symptomatic does not necessarily have to be the one symptom that is used for the diagnosis. Again, the challenge sets it up very nicely so that the teams can just have one and done, and you know, they get all the points, but it just is one of those things where they can have multiple. Maybe a person has a lot of problems. Never know. Maybe good. One more?
So I have another response from the same first question that I said. So the challenge has the symptomatic is for both the anatomy and the symptom effect in the same scoring element. Say they have the most beautiful and technically well-constructed designed heart, but they just have an LED light up the problem area. Clearly, the technical innovation and design of the anatomy is wonderful and the effect of the symptom lacking. How would you like us to score that?
So, this is very well thought out. So it's kind of a tough thing when there's an and. It always makes things a little tricky. So basically, again, you're going to kind of look at a perfect solution is going to be strong in both areas. But that being said, the symptomatic, the technical design, and the technical innovation, those are for the symptomatic as a whole. And the symptomatic does have an and. So parts A and parts B there are both going to need to be a part of that one score. So if you feel like you have one area is up high, but one area is kind of bringing it down, then you kind of find that middle ground in between the two. But you kind of, it's a package deal. really, is the way I view it. And so that effect needs to be good, and the physical representation needs to be strong. And I think your highest scores are going to be ones that do both very well. You don't necessarily have to bomb it just because they didn't do both well. But, you know, definitely give points for what they did do well, but understand that they need to do both pieces of it in order to be achieving that highest score. Am I explaining that correctly?
I think so. I got to thank you.
Okay. Yeah, package deal, basically. All right. We good?
Yep, perfect.
All right. I know this is this is a bit of a tricky challenge. There's a lot of, well, what if this? What about that? Seems like every year there's always something, but this one has been a special kind of fun. All right, getting into the double vision, which is a lot of fun too. So the team is going to have to present part of the story in double vision. And as we said with double vision, it's one action or scene that is shown from two or more perspectives at the same time. They're going to have blocking and staging, basically people and props, to enhance the effect of double vision. And then the double vision can last for as long as the team chooses. But if if the appraisers believe that it's too short, the scores may be affected. Basically, kind of like the symptomatic, the appraiser should not be wondering if it happened. It doesn't necessarily have to go on for minutes, but it will be described in the tournament data form that the teams have to fill out for the appraisers. So the appraisers know what they're looking for. The appraisers, you will know what you're looking for when you're scoring this. But it's, again, one of those things where you as appraiser shouldn't be like, was that it? Did you see that? Like, ugh. And so, yeah, okay, then we go into points. So points for the double vision, integration of the double vision into the story, and then effective blocking and staging. So that, I know that sounds really crazy and vague and blah, but that's really all we have to go off. And it's been a little tricky because we have a lot of team managers, not just ours, but also all, globally, asking for examples and what do you mean? And really the thing is that there's not a lot of guidance here. Blocking and staging, people and props, that's basically the set. That's basically the skit for the most part. Now, granted, they are going to have to define on their tournament data form. I'll kind of read you what they have to say. Just kidding, they don't have to define very much. All they have to say is briefly describe how your team will present double vision. So it's kind of nebulous a bit. And the thing though is that while I know that team managers are finding this very frustrating, and we are too, the fact is that since there's not a lot of requirements surrounding it, a lot of things are going to be allowed as long as they kind of define what they're looking to do. It is, it's going to be a little tricky. The at the same time part, if you're feeling that it did not happen at the same time, let's say you have two teams of doctors who are looking at the same x-ray, and the A team thinks, well, we don't think that it's broken, but the B team looks at it and thinks it's, oh, it's totally broken. If they view those at if they're both viewing the x-ray at the same time, then that would be ideal. If for some reason, the A team looks at it and then a couple minutes later the B team, well, that's not at the same time. So it's a little tricky. If you're feeling that things are not happening at the same time, or or they're not shown at the same time, definitely discuss with your fellow appraisers and bring it up to your head appraiser, your RCM, and we're going to really instruct them on kind of how to handle this. There's been a lot of chatter from the ICMs about how they want to kind of go through and discuss this. But don't worry about it too much, but be prepared, because it's kind of tricky in terms of scoring. Scoring is just integration and then effectiveness. And so there's really no, well, did it happen at the same time scoring component? So if you're seeing an issue, bring it up to your RCM and we will take care of it from there. So we're between now and our first tournament. So are we feeling okay on double vision? I know it's blah. Unfortunately, I can't unblah a lot of it because it's like 5 lines in the challenge. Any questions? No? Man,
nope, everybody's good.
Y'all are easy. All right, well, that's mostly the big points of our challenge in medical mystery specific aspect. We do now have team choice elements, which I do not want to downplay because they are super important, but they are also the same every year. So team choice elements, if you're new to our game, these are parts of the performance that show off a team's interests, skills, talents. It can be props, music, physical actions are always interesting. They have to have 2. They cannot double dip. Whoopsie daisy. And they are scored on creativity, originality, quality workmanship, and then integration. To be honest with you, team choice elements tend to be a struggle for a lot of teams because, and they end up being kind of tough for us sometimes too, because what many times teams will do is they will go through, they have their symptomatic, they have their story, their diagnosis, they have the double vision or whatever it's called, and they will be like, good, we're good to go. Now then they step back and they take a look and they're like, okay, what can we make a team choice element? Wrong. That is the wrong way to approach it, because chances are their team choice element is now part of one of the other elements that's already being scored. And we really do a lot of work and prep to be sure that teams are not double dipping and being scored in 2 places at once. But if for some reason when you get the paperwork and you're scoring and you feel like there's a clear conflict, bring it up. Talk to go talk to the prep appraiser, talk to the team beforehand and be like, hey guys, just want to see, I see that this is written down for your team choice element, but what about, this is also a prop and you're blocking and staging. I don't know, which I think we'll see a lot of actually. So just so you know, again, we try to catch that. It mostly is on the prep appraiser, but if you're feeling concerned, definitely bring it up. But they are very important as they count for 15% of the total score. That's a lot. And again, a lot of times teams just try to sneak them in there at the end, and it dings them and they wonder why. They definitely should not be an afterthought. Specific is better than generic. It's really tough when teams are like, our humor. Well, sometimes they're funny and sometimes it's just not, and then it's like, yikes. So it's much better when something's very specific. It definitely is a way to really kind of hone in on, just it helps us give points better, because sometimes if they say costumes, you have to understand that if they don't say, the particular princess costume that was created, that can be a team choice element. But if they just say costumes, then you're judging the costumes of every team member. And if there are 7 team members and 6 of them are in t-shirts and jeans and there's only 1 who's in princess outfit, that, she made, then they all get grouped together. It's kind of like that symptomatic, that package deal. That's why in this case, we really tell them that it's always better to be more specific than generic. Points, doesn't really matter. This is just kind of putting numbers to all the things that we already talked about. It's in that handout or, well, email out that Kate sent over. So that's basically it for the actual challenge. We're going to run through a couple of our standard appraiser things, which if you've been with us, you know and have heard a zillion times, but we have to say them anyway. So any questions on the challenge itself? It can't be.
I'm not getting any questions.
Wow. Okay. Then you're not paying attention. No. I feel like it feels like a trap.
I think it's because you're a good teacher.
Yeah, we know that's not true. Okay, then we're moving on. Appraiser, if you've never done this, hopefully you have. Ooh, did something just pop up? Did I see?
How many appraisers per team?
So that depends. Let me go down to, So it really depends on the site and how fortunate you are with a good location. Sometimes it can be a struggle to get people, but the way that we do it really is that we will always have a head appraiser, at least one. Typically, a lot of our regions actually have 2 RCMs. And so if they have 2 sites, then they'll be split. My site this year we're going to have 1 site, so we're going to have 2 head appraisers. For the people who score, the challenge appraisers, 4 to 7, it really depends again on how many people we're able to get for that day. Sometimes as you saw, we have two weekends that have 3 tournaments each. It can be tough to be splitting appraisers between regions, especially when you have multiple like Denver-ish regions kind of battling. So it really depends on how lucky you are. But 4 really is pretty much what, we at least have 4 people. I don't foresee any of our sites having an issue with having less than that at this point. So 4 to 7 is kind of the range. There's going to be at least 1 prep person, 1 number cruncher, and then 1 timekeeper announcer. Number cruncher, timekeeper announcer, and prep appraisers are non-scoring. Prep appraiser really needs to be experienced because there's a lot of things that they have to be looking for. The safety of things is really in their hands, making sure that the paperwork is all together, no double dipping. It's a great job. I love it. It's my favorite role, but I know it's not for everyone. And number cruncher, those are the folks who will input all the scores of the appraisers. They make sure that there are no discrepancies. We do have that one area where only all these pages could stay open. Anyway, if the diagnosis is based on 1 symptom, right, it's a 0 or a 10, there will be at least 2 people scoring each element. Both people need to put on that 0 or 10, that answer needs to be the same. It either is both, or at least 2 people. They will both have 0s or they will both have 10s. So that's something that you'll need to be aware of. If that's the element that you're scoring, you'll need to check with your counterpart each time. But the number cruncher is also there to have your back and make sure that, hey, they'll try to catch, oh, someone put a 0, you put a 10. Get together, guys, and make sure that you get that figured out. So they're really helpful with that. And then timekeeper announcer, pretty explanatory. They're the ones who kind of pep up the crowd, enthusiastic, or like, hey, welcome to our tournament today, blah, 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 blah. And then they get the team going. Team, you ready? Appraisers, you ready? Woo, woo, woo. Team, your time begins now. And did I see a question?
Yes, we have another good question. Can we choose our role, or are we being told what we will do?
So
that's a good question.
No, it is. It's a great question. If you feel strongly about something, definitely tell us. If you say there's no way in the world that I am scoring, my mother is coming out for my tournament. She lives in Ohio, and she told me there's not a chance in the world she's scoring. So we're putting her at the door. But there are people who just don't want to score. There are people who they have no desire to stand up in front of people and be a timekeeper announcer. So definitely let us know what you feel most comfortable with. I don't, again, foresee a situation where we don't give you what you want. But also if you're flexible and say, hey, I can do anything, just let me know. That's also, let us know that. And we do try to accommodate as very best we can, because we understand that you're volunteering and we want you to have a good time. And if you're feeling uncomfortable, then your day's not going to be going well. So we want to be sure that you're having a good time and come back and want to do it again. Woo!
So we have another question. They want to know if this webinar will be available to see later. I'm sure you were going to mention that later. Also, she signed up for tournaments when they registered for this webinar, and is that sufficient?
Yes.
Yes, so we will be putting you in the volunteer database for how you registered, and if you would like to see this, you need to email Kate at dicolorado.com and ask for the link. But it's not going to be up until tomorrow or the next day, or maybe later.
I've got to render,
You got to put it up on YouTube.
Yeah.
But it's hidden on YouTube. It's not an open, yeah.
I know, because we can't let our team managers get the inside scoop here. All right. Are we good on questions?
Yes, I've gotten a lot of questions about rubrics, and will there be rubrics available at the tournament sites?
Yes. And this is the problem with these webinars. I kind of just jump right into the challenge. We're going to get slightly more into this. Give me a second. And then if you have more questions about rubrics and scoring, let me know here in a couple slides. And then we will, but yes, everything, all this information, and if you forget something, everything will be available on the day of, whether I go through it or not. And if you're feeling uncertain about something, email us, email Kate, someone. We will get in contact with you and make sure that you are feeling 100% comfortable with the fun that you're about to embark on. Woohoo! Come be a part of our team. All right, so paperwork. So in the thing that Kate sent out in your challenge, there is a tournament data form, and this is really where what the team fills out so that you know what you're scoring. You're not going in and being like, what's the symptomatic? Like, you're not making a guess. The team tells you what the symptomatic is, who the human character is, what the medical mystery is. And if that's not clear, if you're not understanding, if you can't read something, because sometimes team managers have terrible handwriting, and sometimes they let the third graders fill them out and they have terrible handwriting. But most of the time the team managers have worse handwriting than the kids do. Sometimes they're typed out and it's beautiful. But if you are not understanding something, if you can't read it, whatever it is, definitely talk to the team. Be like, hey guys, before you go on, I see that this says, this. Can you tell me what word this is? Or, let me know, point out what anyway, whatever questions you have. But really the way that you score and what you score is all directed to you on the paperwork. So you are not to make guesses as to what you think they're kind of going for. Sometimes, especially in the team choice element department, you're going to wish that they had put down other things, because it's every year it's like, oh, if only they had put that as a team choice element, that would have been great. But unfortunately, you score what they tell you to score. And so that's all guided on the tournament data form. I kind of see it pop up.
Question?
I just see a little thing. Was there a question?
Yeah, it says, will we be able to see our kids perform?
That is super tournament dependent.
You need to ask your regional director.
Yeah.
In general, you need to stay at your site the whole time, but just let your regional director know and what your constraints are, and they will work their best to that, for that to happen, but it doesn't always happen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. She's there for all the tough questions. I guilted her into being here for this webinar, so thank you.
Thank you.
All right, safety. I kind of briefly mentioned that this is on the Prep Appraiser. But if for some reason something takes place during the performance that you say, no way, stop, stop, stop. I know we're not supposed to be anecdotal on these, but I consider myself a decently experienced prep appraiser, and I let through a team with dry ice. They checked all the boxes. They told me everything. We kind of went through everything that they were going to do. Well, it turns out that they were actually, it was inside a water bottle, and turns out they were planning on putting the cap on the water bottle, essentially making it a bomb, which I was not aware of because it wasn't really a question that I asked in prep. Is this a bomb? And it got let through, and it was totally on me. But that was a situation where the appraisers are like, no, 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 stop, stop, stop. So just so you know, if for some reason there is something that you see unsafe, you definitely feel free to stop the performance if you feel that the safety of the kids is at risk. The interview, so after the team performs for 8 minutes or less, you get a chance to go up and talk to them, ask them questions. This is really a chance to get up close and personal with the symptomatic, or get to see the props that are being used for their blocking and staging. Sometimes things go really quickly, and you might not, while the symptomatic has to be seen from 25 feet, maybe there's a lot of stuff happening that's very intricate and behind the scenes, and you can't really get a full picture until you're, you know, up there looking at it. We really ask you to, you know, to be focused on the things that you're scoring, and we also let the team managers know this too, because sometimes the kids are like, well, that person only wants to talk about team choice elements. Like, what about this? Well, we do that because those people are trying to give you as many points as possible. So, you know, if you are doing the symptomatic, be like, hey guys, who here can tell me more about the symptomatic? And can you show me how this works? Like, and so it's really your opportunity to, you know, to learn more about what you just saw. And the kids love this opportunity to, most will just gush. And they will want to tell you so many things, and you know, you got to kind of wrap it up within a decent amount of time, but just in case there's something that you didn't catch, or maybe the symptomatic has some pulley system and you'd like to see it demonstrated again, you know, they can always do that too for you. So, but that being said, if it doesn't work, if it doesn't work the first time and then they show you like afterwards it working, it doesn't count. It has to have worked during the performance. But just so you, I mean, but still a lot of times the kids, if something does go wrong, they want to show you, well, look at what it really does. And so it's a really good time, and the kids really appreciate getting to have more than just their 8 minutes and really getting to go into it for you. What's the question?
The question is a very good one. They're asking if they're going to have enough time to read the paperwork between the different challenges.
So these are all good questions. I love
Yeah.
this. So it can sometimes be quick. I won't sugarcoat that for you. It depends on your region. Some, I think our minimum is 18 minutes in between teams. So if you factor in an 8-minute performance and then an interview, and then writing down your scores, discussing with your fellow appraisers, and then being ready for the next team, there's sometimes not a lot of time, especially if we get behind it all, which we never do, Kate. We're always on time.
Always.
But it's instant challenge. They're the ones. But it can be fast paced. That being said, you are not scoring every element. You get very familiar with, you know, your pieces of paper or, you know, your sections on the tournament data form. You're able to kind of quickly read through them. You are able to have that paperwork with you while you're watching the performance. If you, you know, need to look down and kind of see, oh, okay, yep, that's a symptomatic, I see it. It can be a little, at the beginning, if you're not used to it, it can be a little like, whoo, whoo, and you're like, all right, next paperwork, you know, you're just finishing scoring, and then the prep person's coming in and they're handing you new paperwork and they're trying to tell you something about it, and it can be a little hustle bustle. However, you know, we're never going to, if you're not feeling comfortable with something, you know, again, as an appraiser, our goal is to give points when we really want to be doing, you know, we want to do right by the team. And so obviously we can't just let you be like, oh, okay, I need 5. We can't do that. But if you need to ask a question or discuss something, we will make the time. We do work breaks in. So that is a chance for us to kind of catch up if we, you know, get behind a couple minutes, if there's something, something of horribly inappropriate nature that comes through and we need to chat. Those things can happen. So we're not just moving, but it can be very fast paced. That being said, you get into a groove. You really do. I know it kind of sounds a little intimidating right now. But since you're not doing every part, you know what you're looking for on the tournament data form. You find how quickly you scan and are ready to go. I think in some ways you'll impress yourself, but you'll really kind of get into the groove of it. So does that help? I know this is kind of a scary thing, especially if you're a new appraiser for us. I'm just kind of throwing all this out there. And this is like a shortened PowerPoint because it's what I share in the in-person one, which I know that you don't have that in-person stuff. The intro to the world that you're entering. All right, moving on, interference. Basically, let's say you're doing the interview, and with interference, everything that the kids are performing, creating, everything, it has to be their own ideas. It's all on them. So there cannot be parental assistance or whoever, outside assistance at all. So we have to assume that the team did not receive any outside help. But there are definitely situations, and I feel like it happens pretty much every year, where in that team interview, as I said, the kids will just gush and they get so excited, and you'll be like, wow, well, you know, how did you make that costume? And they'll be like, my grandma made it. And you're like, okay, great. You know, can you tell me more? And inside your heart kind of, it's the dagger. Your heart breaks a little bit, but you don't say anything to the kids. You just kind of keep going, talk to them still about, you know, how it was made. Was it their idea that grandma executed? Did grandma come up with the whole thing? Whatever. And then just go with it. Don't say anything to the kids. Take it back to your head appraiser, and they will tell you how to handle that situation. But unless you see something or you're told something, you must assume that the team did not receive any outside help.
And it could be that they were just guided, or the teacher was a mentor, or the adults were helping in that way rather than actually physically doing the actual building. So sometimes we don't know that.
Okay. There's like 3 words for each, and they're in my team manager slide.
Oh.
Okay, anyway.
That was another
All right, so interference, again, really though, for you, just know that if you see it's kind of like TSA, if you see something, say something. But you're saying something to your head appraiser, not to the kids themselves. Cool. Scoring, okay, so this is kind of going to get into like our rubrics a little bit. As we noted, so you will not be scoring every element. and at least 2 people will be scoring each element. I have an example of kind of how this, like a sample breakdown of this here in a couple of slides. Everything will be scored 0 to 30. I know that if you look at the actual points that are in the challenge, they're not all out of 30. But you will score 0 to 30 on everything, and then our magical number crunchers, they are the ones who will put those numbers into the computer, and then they will scale everything accordingly. That being said, everything's scored 0 to 30 other than your 0 or 10. That your one thing will be either 0 points or 10. That's the only exception. But anything that is not a 0 or 10, anything that is subjective is on a 0 to 30 scale. And we ask that you use the full range. I guess I can go into this a little bit since there was no prior training. But we don't want you to be sitting there and you start every team at 25 points and it's like, oh, well, they were good, 27. They weren't very good, 24. And everyone is just off by a couple points. We give you 0 to 30 because we feel like that's a very sufficient range that you can really feel free to express how you felt about that performance. You know, the way that I kind of tend to do it is start very much in the middle, right at 15, and then either go up or down from there. You will have a chance. It depends on the tournament, but we typically will hold like 4 scores, and no. I'm sorry. I told you you'd want to mute me. We will typically hold the first handful of scores, and then we'll have a break so that you're able to kind of normalize your scoring, and maybe the first thing you saw and you've never seen another challenge and they came out and you're like, that's the greatest thing I've ever seen. And then the second team comes out and you're like, no, that was the greatest thing I've ever seen. Well, we give you a chance to kind of go back through and kind of make sure that you're feeling comfortable with the range, and that everything is where you feel that it needs to be. So we don't just take that first score and it's gone forever. We do hold those scores. The teams don't get to see them until you've kind of gone back through, evaluated, make sure that everything is where you want it to be. And then we'll send those on. So don't get too scared about the first score sheet that comes through. It's not, everything's done in pencil, and you can kind of go back now after those, you know, that first few, then you send them off one at a time and then they're gone. But just don't get too freaked out about the first few because you will have time. Definitely talk to your fellow appraisers, get their input. We said that there are 2 people who will score each element. We're not sitting there expecting that both of you are going to give the same score on each thing. And we really don't want that. It's definitely what you feel. But if you're uncertain about something, if you weren't quite understanding, it's just really great to kind of talk to your fellow appraisers and see what they saw again. But if you are the 2 people scoring that 0 or 10, that score does have to be the same. But otherwise, we give you a little bit of freedom other than in that one area. All right, so this is kind of a breakdown. Let's say that this is a 5 appraiser breakdown. So let's say one of the things that was brought up earlier is, do we get to say what role we want? And yes, but in some ways we can almost refine that a little bit more. If you are 100% not comfortable with technical things and you want no part of that symptomatic, let us know in a breakdown like this. We'll try to make sure that you are appraiser 1 or 2, where you're only scoring double, let's say appraiser 1, double vision in the team choice elements, and you don't actually get near the symptomatic. We have people who are like, I want every technical aspect possible, and I only want, well, you don't necessarily get that, but we do try to, we again want you to be comfortable. And so if there's really an appraiser role, we will hand out these sheets on the day of, and we'll say, hey guys, here's the breakdown. Let us know. Everyone, pick appraiser 1 through 5, whatever. And if you're really feeling uncomfortable, and you were the last one to arrive because the weather was horrible or whatever, and there's some role that you're not comfortable with, let us know, and chances are someone will be willing to switch with you. So we really do want you to feel comfortable. And so again, can't promise anything, but let us know and we will try to make any adjustments. And these breakdowns come from DIHQ. We don't come up with those. But as you can see, each thing has at least 2 people. I believe in this case, there's only 2 for each. Some of the breakdowns will have up to 3 people on a certain item, however it is. But this is kind of one example. And again, we have a handful of breakouts based on experience and number of appraisers. So but again, if there's something that you're feeling, don't want to do, definitely want to do, let us know, and we will try to be sure that, you are then appraising that item that day. Does that help with the rubric at all? In the in-person, I can give you an actual score sheet. I don't have that right here. But it's basically just looking at kind of like you basically see this on a sheet of paper, but you then, instead of kind of those numbers on the side, you're putting your score of 24 and 13 and 17 or whatever, kind of in the place of these instead of the actual numbers. It's pretty similar to that, but they do list out, what the points are, and they will have, any of these little definitions. It looks very similar to this. I don't have a picture in this PowerPoint, but just so you know, it's not too different from this. Okay. If still curious on rubrics though, or whatever, not feeling comfortable, let me know and I can come back to it. Sticky notes. So this is for every team. We make sure that we the appraisers, write a note about something positive in their performance that really stood out to you. Now, not gonna lie, sometimes this can be hard. But you cannot make suggestions when you do it and be like, well, you really should have had this as your team choice element. But if for some reason they had something that was great that wasn't their team choice element, if every person writes on their sticky, wow, I love the frog costume, then maybe they would learn that the frog costume was really great, but you can't say anything. You also can't imply a good score, say that was the best symptomatic that we've seen all day, because we don't want that team to then expect a great score, because we don't actually, number one, you may not have seen all the teams at that point in the day, but really the kids though live for these. We give them back when we give them back their raw scores, and they are so excited to see what the appraisers liked, and they really do mean a lot to the kids, even though I know that sometimes it's in that rush, you're like trying to get your scores and you're like, oh, I have to write a sticky too. Well, and it can be a little crazy, but just know that it's not just to say they really do mean a lot, and the kids will take those back as much and to heart as much as the scores in many cases.
That's a great guide. Hey, Jessica, just if we can wrap up within the next 5 minutes, that would be great.
It's almost like my last slide.
Oh, awesome.
I know. I
have to use the Zoom for another meeting.
Oh no, you didn't tell me I had to be out of here. You just said you had another call. Okay. Sorry, you should have known that. You should have told me.
Sorry.
Okay, you can always move to see the team as need be. If you're in a situation where you're in a gym, sometimes that can be really difficult. The teams can really perform facing whatever direction they want. And so sometimes they choose odd directions. So be sure that you know that you can stand in the way of a parent if you need to. You're the one giving points, and it's in the best interest of the kids. So definitely move if you need to. Our attire is casual. We want you to be comfortable, not only in what you're scoring, but what you're wearing as well. Many times the tournament will provide Appraiser t-shirts, since you aren't out of training to get those. But we always encourage silly, funny hats. We want the kids to know that we're having, just like Bree, we want the kids to know that we're having a good time, and really to help them feel at ease. So that's basically it. I have an appendix of questions, but honestly, we've gone over most of it. So it's really just to have a good time. Any final questions? I'm really sorry that I went over. You should have told me I had to be done at 8, and I would have maybe tried to talk faster. No promises, but maybe.
You're good.
Okay. Well,
also, I just wanted to add too that sometimes sites are cold, so bring a sweater.
Oh yeah. Yes. And if anything, if you have any questions, again, your information is going to be in the database, and then our people should be reaching out to you soon. They will be instructed. We're going to have another training, an in-person training on Saturday. So chances are they probably won't be reaching out to you until after that, once we kind of have everyone in our database. But be on the lookout here soon. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, please let us know. And we are so excited that you are part of the Challenge B team. Yay!
All right. Thank you all. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. We hope to see you at a tournament soon.
Yes.